Hello, welcome to Food and Fitness. I'm Karen Solheim. Today we're going to be talking about emotional eating. We're going to have a cooking demonstration where I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple pork wrap. And then we're going to be having a special guest who is going to show us how to do some special yoga moves for the core. So let's get started. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about emotional eating, something I know a lot about. The reason I know a lot about it is because that's one of my biggest problems. I tend to eat emotionally. If I feel anxious, if I feel sad, if I feel lonely, whatever, food is my self-medication basically. So I've had to overcome that as a habit. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I am in the process of doing that. I certainly haven't defeated that gremlin totally, but I'm working on it, and I want to tell you some of the tools that I've developed. I read a book about overcoming addiction, and one of the things that was shared in this book was a HALT method. HALT, like stop. But it stands for four separate emotions. So when I feel like I want to eat a lot, like I feel a binge coming on or something, I will stop and halt, and I'll think about, am I hungry? For H, hungry. Am I A for angry or anxious or avoiding? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Now, eating is an appropriate response for hungry, but if an apple wouldn't be satisfying, I have to think maybe I'm not really hungry. Maybe I'm emotionally hungry. So then I think, am I angry? Am I anxious? Or am I avoiding something? And for me, the times that I feel the need to snack, and snack over and over again, is when I'm avoiding something or when I'm anxious about something. So what I have done is I write down some of the alternatives that I could, some of the alternative things that I could do rather than snacking. So if I'm feeling anxious, I think about, well, what is it that I'm anxious about? What am I worried about? And then I try to take just one small step towards that anxiety. So if I'm, for example, anxious about a speech that I have to give the next day, instead of snacking, I'll take out my notes and I'll write down maybe the first paragraph that I'm going to be speaking about. So that kind of alleviates the anxiety. If I'm feeling like I'm trying to avoid something, like if I have a big job to do and it's just overwhelming, what I'll do is I'll write down what is the first step that I need to take for that job, and I just decide that I'm going to do just that step right now. And I just do the first step. And that often alleviates the anxiety about the whole thing. And it helps me to stop avoiding it, because I will be well on my way by that point. Once you've done the first step, it's easy to continue on. The last one, or the next one is, L is for lonely. If I feel lonely and I'm reaching for food, that's not very effective. I wrote a little mantra on my computer desk that says, food does not love you. If you're looking at food for love, you're not going to find it there. Then the last one is tired. T is for tired. If I feel tired and I'm looking for food, that's not helpful either, because once you've eaten something, it seems like your digestive system needs some time then, and it's difficult to relax even. So if I'm tired, the appropriate thing is start to wind down, relax, get ready for a nap, get ready to go to bed, or just relax for a little while if it's not the time to go to bed. So remember the HALT system the next time you might find yourself binging or getting ready for a binge, or feeling like you really need to eat a lot of food all at once. The next thing I'd like to talk about is probiotics. Now, I've been hearing about probiotics as an adjunct to a good weight loss program, but because I've read some studies that say that adding probiotic ingredients to your diet can help you in your weight loss program, even if the things that you're eating otherwise stay about the same. So it's not going to help you, certainly, if you're overeating a lot of calories. You're not going to lose a lot of weight. Certainly, you're going to gain weight if you're eating excess calories. But if you are eating a good lean diet, low carb, you're getting your regular exercise, adding probiotics can actually help you to lose a little more weight than if you didn't take the probiotics. So the first thing that I found about taking probiotics is that they really need to be refrigerated. So if you're buying probiotics, you want to go to a place that keeps them in a refrigerated case. And then when you take them home, keep them in the refrigerator. Now they don't have to be refrigerated all the time. You could take them to work and keep them in your desk during the day. But over a period of a few days, high temperatures might kill the bacteria, the beneficial bacteria, because that's really what you want out of the probiotics, is the beneficial bacteria that helps you to form the short chain fatty acids that help to metabolize your fat. So there are 3 probiotic strains that have been found to help with weight loss. They are, I'm going to read this to you and then I'm going to show them on the screen, Lactobacillus rhamnus, Lactobacillus gasseri, and Bifidobacterium animalis. Now, if you were to Google all of these, you could get a copy of all of the studies that show the beneficial uses of these probiotics. They're most effective if you use a low-fat, high-fiber diet, and they're most effective with women. It's best if you take them with kefir. Kefir is a fermented drink, like a liquid yogurt, and it helps to give the probiotic ingredients, the bacteria, something to feed on. You also might want to increase the use of onions, leeks, things that have a little bit of starch to them, because that also, they act as prebiotics, something that the beneficial bacteria can feast on. So that's all about probiotics. Now, as you are going along your own fitness journey, you might want to do something that I've done. I created a binder for myself that includes notes that I've taken, different exercises, studies that I've read, and also the chart of my weight loss. I've added in there, I've added some exercises I just cut out and put in there. I have made journals for myself. A binder like this is really helpful. Right now we're going to be doing a little bit of a cooking demonstration. I wanted to show you how to make a very quick meal that's very healthy and something that you can make with lots of different kinds of ingredients. First, I'm going to take some lean pork loin chops and I'm going to stick them in the frying pan. And you notice I'm not seasoning them first. I'm just being very fast, putting them in the frying pan just to get them started, and then I'll season them. I find that if you season them too early, the pork chops might dry out a little bit too much, especially if you're putting salt on them. Let's put one right in the middle there. These are very lean, center cut pork loin chops. When I got them from the store, they were already pretty lean, but I wanted to have them have no visible fat at all. So once I got them ready to go, I removed all of the visible fat just by taking a sharp knife and cutting around them. So now I'm going to take some spicy seasoning, because spices, as we talked about before, helps to keep your metabolism going really well. So I'm putting some spicy seasoning on there. This is kind of a Southwest flavor. And the pork loin chops only need about 3 minutes per side to cook. So I'm putting those in there. Then I'm going to be making some special salsa. Now, The salsa that I'm going to be making is kind of a standard pico de gallo, but it's also called salsa fresca. Salsa fresca normally is cut very, very fine, where pico de gallo is more coarse. But a lot of people just use the terms interchangeably. So what I'm going to be making, I'm just going to call it salsa fresca. It's probably really pico de gallo. Okay, so first of all, I want to take a good fresh tomato, a really ripe one. I like to get them from the farmer's market or from a produce stand that is something other than my neighborhood grocery store if possible, because the tomatoes that you find at the neighborhood grocery store seem to be bred for shelf life rather than for taste. So I like to get one that's red all the way through. And then I'm just going to take my chef's knife and dice up a piece. Now when you're cutting with a chef's knife, first thing you want to do is make a flat surface. So you cut it so you have a flat surface. And the reason you want to do that is so that it doesn't slip around and you don't cut your fingers off. So I'm just going to cut it in even pieces this way. And the trick for pico de gallo or agua fresca, or sorry, salsa fresca, is getting uniform pieces. That makes the flavor uniform throughout. Just cutting that, and then I'm just going to scoop that, my knife, off out of my knife, into my bowl here. To save time, I have some onion that I have previously diced up also. I'm going to just add a little bit of that. Okay, and then a little bit of spice. So lots of different kinds of pepper. If you go to a produce stand, you'll see peppers that are, there's serrano peppers, jalapeno, there's all different kinds of peppers. They vary in the spiciness of them. If you're not familiar with peppers, you might want to ask someone at the produce market which pepper meets more what your needs are, if you would like something on the mild side or something that's very, very spicy. I'm just going to take a little bit of this red pepper that's very, very spicy, and I'm going to mince it. Notice the knife that I'm using is a chef's knife. This is my very favorite knife. You can see the shape of that. It rocks nicely. It's got a good heft to it. I can cut things very fast with it by rocking. I can mince just by moving it around. It's just a great knife. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that on there. Another thing I want to put in there is some cilantro. Now, some people have asked me, what's the difference between cilantro and flat Italian parsley? They look kind of similar. If you take a look at this, it kind of looks like flat Italian parsley. But if you take a smell, it smells different. The cilantro has more of a licoricey smell to it. It smells much stronger than the Italian parsley does. But if you're not sure, you can always ask at the produce stand, or sometimes they even have a little label on them. So when you're cutting the cilantro, again, you want to just mince it. And I already have some actually that I minced up, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that. And you can add it to taste. You don't have to take too much time about it. Just see what tastes good to you. I'm going to turn over my pork because it's telling me by its sound that it's ready to turn over. Boy, I can really smell it. I can smell the seasoning on top of it. Turn that over. You know, this is so lean that it's actually sticking to the pan. So that's a good sign. It's nice and golden. Like I said, only about 3 minutes per side. Okay, well, 3 minutes on that side. I'm going to season the other side of it now. This doesn't have any salt added to it, so it's not going to be drawing the moisture out of my pork. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to add is a little bit of lime juice. So just again, slicing this up, checking to make sure there's no seeds that are visible, and just squeezing that in there. Okay, and then that's really all you need to include for your salsa, but I brought a lot of other things also that you could include also. So, for example, you might want to add some yellow pepper. Let me show you the right way to cut a pepper. To cut a pepper, you cut the sides off the stem. And then all you have left is this little tiny piece left over, and then you can do whatever you want with the rest of it. Sometimes I like it in strips. Sometimes I like them just cut in tiny strips like that. You can make them into little dices, whatever you like, and then just pop it in there. I like the yellow peppers because it makes a nice contrast in color. So again, look at all that beautiful color. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to want to do is you could also make a tropical salsa. And a tropical salsa, you might use something like pineapple and mango. And if you are using pineapple and mango, you want to use something with a little bit of extra color also. So if I'm making a tropical salsa, normally I'll also add a pepper or two also to the salsa. If you're really short on time, you could also at the grocery store get just a little packet like this to start with. So then the first thing we want to do next is to grab one of these, just as an example. And I'm going to just dice this up. I want to cut against the grain. So I find the grain and I cut the other way. That. And then I'm going to make a wrap just by sticking those on there. Add a little bit of salsa on it. And here too, if you would like, you could add something like, some black beans for some extra fiber, or anything else that you have on hand that would be a healthy addition to it. You could add a little bit of mango if you want to. And then just quickly fold the edges in and then roll it up. And you've got a great wrap. Really good. So that's how you make a quick pork wrap. Our special guest today is Emmy Akpabio. Emmy is a fitness instructor. She teaches yoga, and we're so glad to have her. Emmy, you are going to tell me a little bit about the various types of yoga and why people would want to use yoga. Can you talk about some of the benefits of yoga?
Well, the benefits of yoga will really depend on what style you choose. I started practicing yoga a few years ago now, let's say that. And one thing I've learned is that there are different types and styles of yoga. I generally like to say that there's a different style of yoga for every body. Because if you want to do a lot of meditation, there's a yoga style for that. If you're more interested in stretching, there's a yoga style for that. A very gentle sort of yin yoga is what it's called. If you're interested in building strength and stamina and cardio ability, then there's a style of yoga for that, more like vinyasa flow or ashtanga or bikram. So the benefits of yoga vary according to what you're looking for from yoga, but generally I think of it as a moving meditation, kind of a way of still making your mind still while focusing your attention on your movement. And at some points in certain movements, I can actually feel myself my mind becoming more clear. So
your mind becomes more clear because of your movements.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and at the end of every class, you get to do a little. You get to go into Shavasana, which is where you get to lie down and just relax, which is also nice since I don't take much time to do that during the day.
Okay,
So.
great. Well, one of the things that I'm most interested in right now are strengthening my core. Could you show me some yoga that would help me to strengthen my core?
Sure. Well, I think one good, let's see, there are 3 different moves that I can think of right off the bat that'll target 3 different areas of the core. The six-pack area, then also the lower core and the obliques. So the first thing that comes to mind is boat pose called Navasana.
Boat pose.
Navasana, boat pose. And to start with that pose, I usually start with knees bent, knees together, feet together. And just to start off, the easiest version is placing my hands behind my hips and then leaning back a little bit, keeping a flat back, lifting my legs off the mat, keeping my knees together, my feet together. So starting here, and then if this is enough for me today, then I stay here. Otherwise, maybe I'll extend my arms. So just balancing kind of on my tailbone. And usually I stay here, but if I'm trying to feel a bit more ambitious in a day, then I'll extend my legs.
Wow.
Which I'm not very good at.
Hard.
So yeah, it is a bit of a challenge. And then if I'm teaching, because I teach in a gym, people tend to be very, it's type A personality, so they like to get a bit more fitness in. So then I'll alternate between this and coming down to a hover with arms extended and legs extended and keeping my back flat on the mat, drawing my belly in towards my spine. This kind of exercises the entire core.
Wow.
So alternate between coming up and going down.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Did you want to give that a try?
I'll give it a try, but I'm probably going to just be able to do the easy part.
Yeah, and well, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
that's enough by itself. So just feet together,
feet together,
knees together, hands behind your hips, so just a little bit behind your hips. Yeah, and then just leaning back a little bit, lifting your legs off the mat. So I call this tabletop.
Flex?
Yeah, I usually keep my feet flexed. If my legs are extended, then I'll point them.
Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah, but otherwise I keep them flexed.
Okay.
And draw your belly in towards your spine. So you want to keep your back flat, your belly flat.
Okay.
Yeah, and then feel free to stay here. Maybe it's an isometric exercise if you're doing the flow between this and coming down to a hover, then do that for as many times as you can stand. Otherwise, maybe 10 seconds in boat and then a rest, and then another 10 seconds and then a rest. Okay. So just doing it a few times, the same way that you do any other sort of isometric exercise, just doing it in a set.
So you only hold it for about 10 seconds before you move?
No, well, in yoga in the form of yoga that I practice, vinyasa, we usually count in terms of breaths.
Oh, okay.
So I might try to hold it for, 5 breaths, 7 breaths, 10 breaths. But if you're doing it in seconds, then, well, I guess when I say 10 seconds, that I'm using that as a starting point. Mm-hmm. I'd probably go for 30.
Okay.
I'd probably recommend 30 for each set, just to see how that feels.
Okay, let's try another one.
Okay, another one that comes to mind. Gosh, upper, lower. So actually, I'm going to move on to my hands and knees.
Okay.
For something called side plank, so the easiest way to start off is just starting off in hands and knees, then lifting your knees off the mat. So coming into what we call plank pose, right, which I'm sure there's a name for it in regular fitness as well, with just your shoulders above your wrists, legs extended. So it's actually kind of a full body exercise since you're using your arms, you're holding your core in, you're using your hips and legs. But then coming into side plank, you just tilt onto the outside of your
foot.
Okay. And you can either have your feet in a line, your feet stacked, or you can go a bit further, but I'm not going to do that today. And then extend your arm towards the ceiling.
Seems like that needs a lot of balance to do that.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of arm strength. You can also do this with your forearm down, coming into a forearm plank.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to add on, then you could exhale down, lowering your hip down towards the mat, and inhale, lift.
Back up. Oh,
yeah, and that adds an extra hip component as well. So,
okay.
Do you want to give that a shot?
I'll give it a shot.
You can do it on forearm or on your hand.
Which is the easiest? Is it stacked or the foot in front?
Foot in front is
the
the
easiest.
easiest.
Okay, I'll start with that.
Yeah, okay.
I've done plank before at the gym.
Yeah, that's definitely a good exercise for your core as well.
Plank, and then you shift onto your foot.
Yep, shift onto the outside of your foot.
Like that?
Yeah, one foot in front of the other.
Okay.
Helps your balance.
And
then lifting So again, you can either have your hand down or bring your forearm down parallel to the top of the mat.
Okay.
And
then lift your foot?
no, that foot stays down.
Okay.
You just stack your hips. So you stack your top hip
and
on
then
top of the
bring it
bottom
down
one.
And then up?
And this arm should be lifted towards the ceiling.
Oh, I see. That's why it's hard.
So you're adding on that way. And then, so you can either stay here or, again, turn it into a more dynamic exercise by lowering the hip and lifting the hip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that takes a lot of arm
it takes a lot of arm strength, and it takes some time to get used to putting that much pressure on your wrist. You have to figure out how to have your hand down without your wrist turning into a liability, let's say.
Yes.
Which is why sometimes it's good to start with forearm.
Okay. Okay, what else can we do for the core?
And then the last thing I was thinking of is, and you've probably done this a lot just in regular fitness classes as well, but it's a good classic movement. It's tied to the hovering motion we were doing before in boat pose, but this one you start lying on your back. I usually do it with my hands planted next to my sides, but people also can do this with your hands underneath their hips.
Okay.
Lift your legs to 90 degrees, and I usually keep my feet flexed for this. And then keep my back flat on the mat.
Yes.
I just exhale and lower down about 1/3 of the way and hold here for the inhale. Then exhale another third down, hold for the inhale, and then exhale down to just to hover. Hold for the inhale. And then come all the way back up and go through again. And usually about, as many sets of that as I can stand, but usually at least 6. And I feel like that's good for the lower belly as well.
That's great. I think I don't have time to actually try that one, but it looks like it's a very good exercise. And I think that the poses that you've been talking about, and as you've been talking about the breathing, that it really does give you a concentration on your breath, especially if you're counting by your breath.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us today, Emmy.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Right.